Happy Sunday, everybody. This is the newest edition of Bet. I'm Erin Dolan, joined by the fabulous Eric Moody. We are going to be talking all things conference championships. Not to mention, we're going to bring in Tyler Fulghum later to get some of his picks and then talk a little bit about the NBA. But Eric, it is winding down. It's conference championship. Any big plans to watch the games today?
Well, you know what? I'm just going to sit on my sofa, have the surround sound on, have my family around me, and really get into these games. I'm excited. Got two great matchups. Got a lot of great quarterbacks playing, so I expect big things. You look like you're dressed for success. I am rooting for your Eagles today, by the way.
See, you're a nice human being because I know you like the Dallas Cowboys. And for you to say I'm rooting for your Eagles today, just you know that you are a kind-souled human being because I would not wish you the same, especially because you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. But I like what you're putting down. I always actually love watching games from the couch. I always think it's better than being out at a loud, crowded bar or even at tailgates because things just get out of hand. You can never seem to find an Uber or Lyft home. But nonetheless, I'm excited to watch these games. And as you guys know, I am an Eagles fan. But let's first look at some of these lines. And there's just one we have to talk about in particular. It's the Bengals game versus, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. This line is absolutely insane. So on Sunday, after some of the games wrapped up, you got Kansas City opened as a 2.5-point favorite. And you can also take a look at this total, which hasn't been really moving as much as I would say as the spread. By Tuesday in the morning, Cincinnati flipped to a 2.5-point favorite. And then money started clearly coming in on Kansas City. And now it's Kansas City minus 1.5. I don't know if I'm believing what this spread is, what's going on with this. It's been all over the map. For one, on SportsCenter this morning, I always do my errand on the side of caution, and this was the one line that I talked about in particular that I didn't feel that you really need to bet into because it's such a short line. Just take which team you like on the money line, and you had opportunity throughout the entire week to get it at a price that you probably liked. But Eric, out of curiosity, when you see the line moving that much from Sunday to now, 7 days, what is your impulse on this? How are you thinking, I need to bet this now that the Chiefs, more money is coming on the Chiefs? Or are you like, now the Bengals are in a spot that I like? Or is this just like a type of money line bet for you? Not your pick, just what you thought of the line overall.
Yeah, whenever I see that kind of fluctuation, I do agree with you. I would just lean more towards the money line. Bet on the team that you believe that'll win. But it's been interesting watching the lines move as we get more reports about Patrick Mahomes and this high ankle sprain. We even have like his trainer tweeting out photos, basically saying that Mahomes has that dog in him. Everyone knows that meme, on the internet. So I kind of find it funny. But one thing that's really intriguing, that the line may be moving, but the point total, does not seem to be moving. So perhaps they're like, okay, maybe it'll dictate on Mahomes' ankle whether the Bengals win or lose. But anyway, I agree with you. I would just pick the team that you believe will win and just take it from there.
Absolutely. And it was kind of funny to see some of those things being tweeted out. I don't know if I'm buying it. I really don't. I feel like we're putting on a show that Patrick Mahomes is going to be great. He's going to be fine. And no matter what they do to make him, suited up for this game, it doesn't mean it's not going to get worse during the game. That's something to definitely keep in mind.
Exactly.
I know this is a do or die type situation. It's the end of the season. But at the same time, I don't know. It didn't look good last week, and I felt like he pushed through. But again, They only beat the Jags by 7 points. This is a totally different team that's coming in with a different mentality, and especially since they've been beaten 3 times. So let's now get some of your picks for this game. So as we talked about, Kansas City, a 1.5-point favorite. The total currently at 47.5. What are you liking? Side total, player props? You can give them all to me at once.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So to our earlier question, I do like the Bengals to win this game, so I would back them on the money line. So you kind of alluded to this. You got Joe Burrow. You got this Bengals team. They're 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I'm really concerned about this high ankle sprain. I know he's out there walking in press conferences and not making it seem like a big deal, but I think mobility will be an issue. And I'll tell you what, Erin, if I'm a member of this Bengals defensive front, I'm salivating at the potential of wearing down this Bengals offensive line and Patrick Mahomes throughout the game and testing him each and every play. I also like Joe Burrow a lot in this matchup. So I'm looking at the player props for him over completions. The line's at 25.5, and also in passing yards, which is at 277.5 passing yards. And so I don't think Burrow is going to take this Chiefs team lightly. He's played them before. He's had some success. And he's the type of competitor, the boogeyman, so to speak, for where he's going to want to take the soul away from this Chiefs team on their home field in a nationally televised game. That's going to be his goal in this matchup, and I think he's going to do everything in his power to make that happen. And he's done really well from a completion percentage perspective. He's completed 68.2% of his passes if you count the regular season and also the playoffs. And he's also averaging 273.7 passing yards per game, and he's thrown well over 300-plus yards in each game he's played against the Chiefs. So I do love not Mahomes, but Burrow, I would say, in this matchup. And he has a history of shining on the big stage. Last but not least, talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I do like Travis Kelce in this game, who's dealing with back spasms. It was never in doubt that Kelce was going to play, but he's been superb in his last 7 playoff games. This is a guy that's averaged 9.5 targets and 94 receiving yards per game. I think I would say the Chiefs will lean heavily on the quick passing game in this matchup. I think Kelce will be actively involved. So those are some of the picks for the game, Aaron.
I like it, and I just want to let everybody know that Eric and I do our own analysis, but somehow, some way, we've kind of just looking at these games at this point, we completely agree basically on everything. So in this one, the line is so short that I have to take the Bengals on the money line. And one thing I wanted to note that maybe you weren't aware of is that the Bengals are really good in the second half of games over the last 2 seasons, their defense, that is. So for context, if you look at Patrick Mahomes, he's met the Bengals 3 times. In those 3 meetings in the first half, he's had 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. In the second half, 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So I do think the defense is going to come up big today, especially in the second half of the game, even if the Chiefs do go up. We saw last game, I think the Chiefs were up by 14 to 17 points, and then the Bengals came back. So I would be a little bit worrisome of that. But again, short line, I think the Bengals get it done. They're better on offense and they're better on defense for sure. Now, if the Chiefs had a really good defense, I think they could get away with some of their weapons, whether that was at the running back position or just those quick passes like Eric had mentioned to Travis Kelce, etc. But their defense really isn't that good, which makes me a little bit nervous and why I think Joe Burrow will have a big game in this spot. Since I don't really know what's going on with Patrick Mahomes and that injury, I do want to mention one of the player props that I like is Isaiah Pacheco to go over 47.5 rushing yards. He had, last game against the Bengals, 66 rushing yards. Last game, which was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 95 rushing yards. And as we know, Patrick Mahomes got injured in that game, so they really leaned on the run game. I think that's going to be the same story, especially if Mahomes gets worse throughout the game. Also, for what it's worth, Isaiah Pacheco has hit over 47.5 rushing yards in 9 of his last 10 games. This line just feels way too low for a guy that really might have to come up big in this matchup. So Bengals money line, Isaiah Pacheco over rushing yards. And then, of course, I have to talk about Ja'Marr Chase, because who doesn't love to talk about Ja'Marr Chase? I do think he will go over his receiving yards, which is currently, I believe, 82.5. And I do think he will also have a touchdown. Now, the last time that he played against this squad, he had 97 receiving yards. The game before that, in case you forgot, he had 11 receptions for 266 receiving yards. Ja'Marr Chase has absolutely owned the Kansas City Chiefs in a complete way that is just unfathomable. 266 receiving yards. I remember that game. It was absolutely crazy. So I also like him to have a touchdown in this one. I don't really trust the Kansas City Chiefs defense, so I do think Ja'Marr Chase will also have a big game for the Bengals. All right, let's switch it over to my favorite team. The Eagles are playing the 49ers at Lincoln Financial Field. And let me tell you something. This city is rocking. I was in the city yesterday. Everybody is amped up for this. I was at the Sixers game, and you can see people all wearing their Eagles gear. I mean, today is a good day to be alive in the city of Philadelphia. Now, of course, that is if they win. If we lose, it's a totally different conversation. But they're going against 49ers, 2.5-point favorite. The total has dropped down to 45.5, I believe. Let me check that. Yep, 45.5. First, before we talk about it, do you think this line at any point, Eric, would ever touch 3?
No, I felt like it. I felt like it could. Yeah, it's just a lot of uncertainty, kind of back and forth throughout the week. But I do like the Eagles in this matchup, though. Want me to dive in?
Yeah, dive on in. I was just wanted to quickly talk because it's been sitting at 2.5, and I feel like bettors all week. We're probably thinking maybe at some point this is going to hit -3, and then you're going to probably grab the 49ers. I wouldn't be surprised if this potentially goes down in the 49ers' favor, because I think there would be some sharp money coming in on that spread with the 49ers. But nonetheless, you give me your picks, spread, side, total, player props, give it all.
Yeah, I'll go ahead now. It's a little smorgasbord of different things. So I do like the Eagles in this matchup to cover the spread. You know, one thing about the Eagles, they're 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 playoff games. 7 of the last NFC championships have been won by the home team. So I do like the Eagles here. I do like Jalen Hurts a lot in this matchup to actually surpass 32.5 pass attempts in this game. The 49ers defense, they do struggle in the deep passing game. You look at Jalen Hurts, he's thrived in that area. Devontae Smith has thrived in that area, likewise with A.J. Brown. So I think they'll really test this team because I would like to see them run like a high percentage of the time, like 12 personnel. Just get Smith and Brown on the outside and just really let these two receivers go to work. But last but not least, I do like Devontae Smith as well to surpass 65.5 receiving yards. I'm like, he's played great the second half of the season. You look over the last 9 games. I'm like, this is a receiver that's averaged 86 receiving yards per game. So I think he's going to have a monster game as well as A.J. Brown in this matchup.
Okay, I like it. Now, I think A.J. Brown is going to have a huge game, which is why one of my best bets was A.J. Brown to go over his receiving yards prop at 71.5. Earlier this week, I gave it out when it was sitting at 69.5, which always make sure you monitor social media because obviously we're at the point where we're getting some of the worst lines just because it is Sunday morning. But nonetheless, I do think he'll have a big game. Last game against the Giants, he only had 22 receiving yards, but the game plan for the Eagles was to run the ball against the Giants defense that was terrible at stopping the run. That's why I talked about Miles Sanders over rushing yards last weekend as one of my favorite bets. Now, in this game, I see it being a totally different story. The 49ers defense is very good, as we all know. But if you break it down, they're second against the run, 20th against the pass. So that is an area that they'll be able to exploit, meaning the Eagles will be able to exploit that on the 49ers defense. So I do think A.J. Brown will have a good game with Jalen Hurts and hit over his receiving yards prop. Now, I believe you should take the Eagles on the money line. I'm not messing around with the spread whatsoever. It is still short at 2.5, and the 49ers have been really good against the number all season. With that being said, I know you're laying a lot of juice. So you could add this into a parlay, or maybe, add an anytime touchdown score or something along with this to try to get it to plus money or even to minus 110, for example. Again, you have to manipulate the odds with what you are agreeing with in terms of trying to find the number. Nonetheless, the reason I think the Eagles are going to win it is for a multitude of reasons. One, they're better on offense and defense if you really, really break it down per position. On top of that, this game is going to come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes, who has the least amount of penalties. On top of that, which quarterback is going to be better. And I believe in Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy because Brock Purdy is going against one of the best pass rushes in the league. They are going to eat him up. I think the guy's going to be on the ground a ton in this game. I know we're going to talk about some of his player props in just a minute. On top of that, I will say Coach Sirianni, I trust him more, even though that might be a hard sell for some people, but he is the 4th highest go for it percentage this season, which makes me believe in him just as one of those guys that's just going to go for it. That's what we need to do. It is the playoffs. All right, let's get on to our next segment, which is called Place or Pass. We haven't done this here yet on Bet in a while, or maybe we've done it in the past, and my brain is just not functioning at this point. Many days of work. All right, Kadarius Toney, plus 175, anytime touchdown score. Would you place this or would you pass?
I'd actually place this bet. You look at Kadarius Toney, they did say that, hey, we want to involve Kadarius Toney more as we enter the playoffs, and that's what happened. I'm like, he had the second most targets last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's someone that's very capable of, getting yards after the catch, getting rushing attempts, so I would place that bet. And just given Mahomes' health, I could see them kind of leaning on their playmakers even more in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go pass on this one. I don't know. It's just not coming to me. I feel like he doesn't have many touchdowns in the season. You got a guy like Travis Kelce. Here's the thing with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, which you'll notice. You can't bet Travis Kelce to have a touchdown every game, but when he is on, he's going to have like 4 touchdowns. So I feel like it's the playoffs. They have all this chemistry. I know you mentioned the back spasms, things like that. I'm just not really bought in on Toney as one of my favorite guys to score a touchdown for today. So I'm going to have to go pass on that one. All right, second one we got. Brock Purdy will not throw an interception, which is plus 114. Place or pass?
I'm going to pass on this one. I'm laughing because I'm like, okay, Brock Purdy's been great up to this point, but people are underestimating this Eagles defense. And they've got 18 interceptions when you combine the regular season and the playoffs. And I think there's a strong chance that the Eagles will get out to a lead in this game. So you have the 49ers playing from behind. And when that happens, a quarterback will have to take on more risk and could make a mistake. So I do believe that Brock Purdy will throw an interception in this game. So I am passing that.
I'm passing as well. I also believe he could quite easily throw an interception in this one. We've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. When is Brock Purdy finally going to be absolutely exposed? It's going to come a point, and against the Eagles defense seems like a really good time to expose Brock Purdy, speaking as a fan and an analyst. But the Eagles during the regular season, they're one of the best teams in terms of defensive interceptions. They had 17 during the regular season. They only had 1 last game against the Giants, but keep in mind, if you look at the numbers for defensive interceptions, the Eagles had that bye. Keep that in mind. So, of course, their number is going to be lower. but I do think he will end up having an interception. The only way he wouldn't is if they completely just lean on Christian McCaffrey for every single solitary play and he doesn't have to throw the ball. But I don't see that happening. All right. Place or pass, we got Philly wins 2 quarters plus 115. What are you doing here?
Oh, yeah, I'm placing this bet. I think the quarterback situation, of which we've been talking about, will play a huge factor in this game. You got Jalen Hurts. He's the more experienced quarterback, and so I think that'll play a huge part in this game. And I think the Eagles' defense are really going to test Purdy in this game, so I would place that bet.
All right, I'm placing it as well. Again, Eric and I did not talk before the show. We just think alike. So I just think the Eagles, they could go up in the first half. They could definitely win 2 quarters. It seems too easy at the plus money of plus 115. It's not a long shot. It's not a huge underdog. But at the same time, it feels like one that you could be placing. And again, I think the Eagles go up in the first half. It's just that second half I'm a little bit concerned about if the 49ers start making a push and suddenly they're able to cover things like that. But there should be at least 2 quarters in which they're able to win. All right, Eric, sit tight. We're going to bring you back in just a little bit when we do our favorite segment of Take It to the Bank. But like I said at the top of the show, we are going to bring in Tyler Fulghum from Vegas, very early out there in Vegas. We had an early Daily Wager show today to ask for some of his picks. Tyler, I know you're tired, so we're trying to get you in and out of here. But we're going to go Cincinnati, Kansas City currently. Kansas City minus 1.5 point favorite. That total has come down. I believe it's at 47.5. How you playing this game?
Yeah, you're rocking your Philly green there. I'm rocking my Bengal orange, I guess, here. I like Cincinnati plus the points. We know about the history between these two teams of the last couple of years. It's been some comeback wins from Cincinnati. Joe Burrow has played very well. Patrick Mahomes has looked, by his standard, very pedestrian against Lou Anarumo's defense. You add into the fact now that he has the high ankle sprain, and I know we've seen the videos come out of Kansas City, but I'm kind of with Joe a little bit here. It's like, he who doth protest too much. I believe Mahomes is going to go out there and play good football, but I think for Mahomes to get over this hump and the Chiefs against a Bengals team, I think is just a little bit better from top to bottom. They need a 100% Mahomes, not a 70, 80, 90% Mahomes. So I trust Lou Anarumo and that defense, one of the best tackling teams in the NFL, to contain Mahomes to the pocket, not let him create because of that ankle and because of their scheme. And I think ultimately on the other side, Burrow, Higgins, Chase, Hurst, Mixon, just a little bit too much. I think it's a close game. Kind of want to go over if I had to pick a side of the total, but I think the Bengals win a close one, like 28-26 or something like 31-28, something like that. I think it's a good, entertaining game, but ultimately, I think the Bengals get their 4th straight against this KC team.
Yeah, I expect that. And I feel like a lot of the narrative was around, well, can Joe Burrow really beat Patrick Mahomes a 4th time? Yeah, if Patrick Mahomes' ankle is absolutely torn up, that could easily happen. All right, let's talk about my Eagles, since, as you know, my favorite team. They're currently laying 2.5 points, playing at the Link today, and the total is down 45.5. Spread, total, player, prop. What you got for me?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the total, and it keeps coming down, so hopefully you jumped on this a little bit earlier when we started talking at the beginning of the week about this game. I'll go under. I think we see a similar game script to what we saw when the Niners played the Cowboys last week in the divisional round. The Cowboys have that great defensive line, Tank Lawrence, Micah Parsons. Their offensive line is not as good as Philadelphia's, but these are two teams where their strength is built on what they can do running the football with their offensive line and scheme, and on the defensive side, what they can do with their defensive line in terms of applying pressure on the opposing quarterback and stopping the run game. So I think despite the myriad weapons on both sides of the ball, I was someone who thought the San Francisco-Dallas game would go over. It didn't even sniff that because that was such a physical game at the line of scrimmage on both sides. I think we see a similarly, if not more physical game at the Link today with the Niners and the Eagles, where one big play by a Debo or one big play by an A.J. Brown, one big play or mistake by Purdy, one big play or mistake by Jalen Hurts is kind of the difference. I think it's another good game, but a lower scoring game. And if I had to pick a side, I've been riding with the Niners ever since they acquired CMC. They haven't lost since before Halloween. I know a lot of smart people like the Eagles, but I'm going to stand alone on Alcatraz, on the rock, with the 49ers.
Oh, Tyler, you're really lucky I'm not in Vegas today. We actually never let go of Eric Moody in this little segment, so I know he's been popping up. I didn't want you guys to think that I was just disregarding him. But now we're going to get to our bold predictions. So, Tyler, give me your bold prediction. It better not be that the 49ers are able to beat the Eagles today?
Well, I mean, that's not, I don't think that's bold, Erin. I mean, again, this is a team that's won 12 games in a row.
I'm just giving you some lip.
This is one we had on Daily Wager earlier in the week, and I think it's kind of a fun, long shot 9-1 wager that all 4 teams today convert a 4th down play. Now, we know that your Eagles and Nick Sirianni love to go for it on 4th and short, so they're probably the most likely team to do so. On the other hand, the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan have been way too conservative for some people's tastes on 4th down, especially when you have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and all those playmakers. But ultimately, when you get down to championship weekend, 2 games that have very tight spreads, 2 games that we're all admitting are very hard to handicap, kind of coin flips. I think you empty the chamber, you empty the playbook. You gotta be aggressive. Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, Nick Sirianni, Zach Taylor, you all have to be aggressive. You're 4th and short in positive territory. If it's the final drive of a 1-score game and you need to convert to try and get a field goal attempt or a touchdown to win, I think at 9-1, sure. All 4 teams convert a 4th down. That's kind of fun.
I like it. Yeah, that is very juicy odds, being 9-1. But someone just told me in my ear that Eric Moody might be really pushing all the chips in here with a really juicy, bold prediction. So give it to us, Eric.
Yeah, no, I'll do that. I was thinking about the great Michael Keaton from Batman '89 talking to the Joker. Like, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Now, here's what I've got for everyone here. Okay, 2-team parlay. A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase as the first touchdown scorer for their respective teams. And what I like about this is that I'm like, you've got 2 alpha number 1 wide receivers who accumulate a ton of targets. Both of their teams should lean heavily on the passing games in their respective matchups. So this was like 2 bets that I was kind of drawn to, like a moth to the flame. And once we were talking about bold predictions, I'm like, this is bold. But if it pays out and they make this happen, bettors will be very happy. So what do you think?
Bettors would be very, very happy. These anytime touchdown scorer parlays are one thing, but then to do the first touchdown scorer parlay, I mean, those are some very, very juicy odds. But I'm not saying it's not going to happen. And since we're kind of talking about that, I just wanted to mention Anita Marks also had mentioned for her bold prediction, Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith each to score 2 touchdowns, and that paid out 50-1. So that was really, really bold. So now I kind of feel like I should have went a little bit more bold. But I'm going to go with Chiefs-Bengals. We're going to take this game into overtime. And look, the Chiefs, during the regular season, there were a couple games that they went into overtime. For the Bengals, the first game of the season against the Steelers, that went into overtime. But this spread has been going around like crazy. No one knows what's going to happen in this game. It feels like it's going to be really close. That's one thing everybody seems to agree on. So who's to say this game isn't going to go in overtime? I don't think Patrick Mahomes and company are just going to roll over to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is not just going to roll over to Patrick Mahomes and company. This could be a very tight, close game. So if you do like it to go into overtime, I think it's plus 929. Yes, plus 929. So I'm right there around Tyler with a little bit of a less bold prediction than Eric, but nonetheless, we all made some good ones there. Now it's time to do our Take It to the Bank, and let's look at last week's results. I believe we have 2 winners on the board. Let's see, Ezekiel Elliott under rushing yards hit for Tyler. Congrats there. My Dak Prescott over pass attempts also hit, and good thing for that was, I hate Dak Prescott, to be quite frank, but I had to take him to win you guys some money. Eric, it's okay. Buffalo, the team total 27.5, that loss, but to be honest, that was, what a terrible performance for them. Terrible, terrible, terrible. All right, so let's continue on with our Take It to the Bank. Tyler, you're up first.
Yeah, I kind of, based on how I'm handicapping this Bengals-Chiefs game, it's scary because it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's still a very bad man, even with a sprained ankle. I'm going under his passing yardage prop. It's all the way up to 285.5. Remember earlier in the week, guys, this opened at like 271, 272. Of course, it's been bet up 14, 15 yards. I think it's appropriate to attack the under because in 3 appearances against Lou Anarumo's defense over the last 2 years, Mahomes is averaging 253 yards passing per game. His high water mark, which came in the AFC title game a season ago, is 275 yards. And that game went into overtime. So, listen, Until proven otherwise, and of course, anytime he could do it, Mahomes and Andy Reid need to solve this Bengals defense. And at less than 100%, I'm banking that the Bengals and Anarumo still have what it takes to make Mahomes look less than Mahomes, which is still a pretty good quarterback. But Mahomes, when he is Mahomes, is maybe the best we've ever seen. I think he comes under 285.5 with that Bengals defense, which is better than the sum of its parts, and Lou Anarumo calling the shots. It's scary betting against Mahomes, and everyone is seemingly doing it this week because of that ankle. And my best bet is this player prop going under here.
I like it. And that was actually one of the props that I was going to talk about this morning on SportsCenter, just because I feel like a lot of people just instantly, when they see a number that low for Patrick Mahomes, just want to bet the over. But I agree with you, Tyler. I do expect that to go under. All right, Eric, give me your take it to the bank.
Yeah, I was just thinking, the poor Buffalo Bills, they didn't score enough points. They broke my heart last week. They broke my heart like Anakin Skywalker broke Padme's heart in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. But I look to bounce back this week. I do like Devontae Smith over receiving yards. I do see, the Eagles leaning heavily on the passing game in this matchup against the 49ers. I do like Smith. He's well positioned for success. Again, he's averaged 86.2 receiving yards per game over his last 9 games. So my take it to the bank for this week, Devontae Smith over 65.5 receiving yards.
Eric, I have to be honest with you. I think you've made 2 movie references so far, and I have no clue about either of the ones that you have mentioned. My movie knowledge is so bad, and I've been laughing like I know it, but I had to expose myself because I awkwardly giggle all the time. I have no clue. Joe Fortenbaugh did that to me the whole time in Vegas, calling me out for my outfits, and no idea what he was talking about. But for my take it to the bank, I'm going to have to go with, I can't even remember who I'm going with, A.J. Brown over receiving yards in this one. Like you had mentioned, you think the Eagles are going to have a big day in terms of the pass. I also agree with this. Now, if we saw what the 49ers defense did last week against the Dallas Cowboys, they were able to limit the run but not the pass. So CeeDee Lamb had over 100 receiving yards. Meanwhile, Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, they were really limited on the ground. This is something I expect the 49ers to do. Again, considering I talked about this a few times in the show, break down the defense. They're second against the run, but 20th against the pass. So I'm going to have to go with A.J. Brown over receiving yards. All right, Tyler, thank you so much for joining Bet this morning. I know it's really early out there in Vegas, so enjoy watching both the games today, and I hope all your bets cash.
Will do, and here's another movie reference you won't know, but Eric will. I'm out. Gone with the Wind.
Yep, that doesn't ring a bell. Nothing. Do you want to tell me what movie it is, Eric? Do you know? Or are we both laughing and we don't know?
I was just thinking he's mentioning Gone with the Wind, one of the greatest films in cinema history. So I thought that's what he was alluding to, but it seems like it may have been multi-layered there. It's okay, Aaron. We'll work on that. We'll work on that for the next time.
Okay.
Pop culture references, I'm your guy. I got you.
Okay, so you didn't know really what it was. I don't know what it was. Our producer doesn't really know what it was, so maybe it wasn't that something that people would have known. Anyways, let's get to before I let you go, there are some NBA games on the board for today. And guys, I know you'll be focused on the NFL. There's 2 games, but don't forget about the NBA. So, Eric, what is your, before I let you go?
Yeah, I am going to the NBA, of course. I do like Bam Adebayo today, going up against the Hornets. So I do like Bam to get over 33.5 points plus rebounds. And I will tell you, Aaron, you look at the Hornets, they have been the gift that keeps on giving to opposing centers all season. You look at Charlotte, they give up the 3rd most points per game to centers. They give up the most rebounds per game to centers. And one thing about Adebayo, he's played really well against the Hornets over his last 6 games. He's averaged 21 points and 13.7 rebounds per game in each of those matchups. And so I think Adebayo is really going to thrive in this matchup. So if you're looking at a player prop, I'd bet the over here.
All right, I like it. I'm looking at Memphis in the first half -5.5. So in the last 10 games, Memphis has covered the first half spread in 6 of those. The Pacers have been terrible, 2-8 against the spread in the first half in the last 10 games. The Pacers just got torn apart by the Bucks. The Bucks were up by 29 points in the first half. I was watching the game. I'm like, the Pacers, they can't seem to do anything. And the Pacers, in terms of, God, it sounds like I'm going off their name. The Pacers' pace in the first half just hasn't been good the entire season. So I do think that Memphis will jump out on this team. They're much healthier, and they'll be able to cover the 5.5 when playing at home. So that's going to be my before I let you go. But guys, this has been a very fun show of Bet. Eric's rooting for the Eagles because he's a good human being. I'm rooting for the Eagles, and we'll see what happens in the AFC Championship game as well. We won't have a show next week, but we will for the Super Bowl, so we'll talk to you guys then. Thanks so much for joining Bet This Morning. Good luck on all your bets. I hope they cash for you. Have a good day.